Well, that should be recording away, so let's try it. So this is the same folder that I used for the other data. So I'm going to right click on it and open with Open Office Calc. And let's minimize that. And then opening it with, so text import and separated by comma, OK. Okay, so yeah, this looks like the same data that I used on the other one. So this part doesn't really matter because I'm not going to use it, but seeing it here and wrong would bother me. So I'm clicking in box 2B and getting that formula here and changing the comma out to a semicolon. Alright, so by changing those commas to the semicolons, now I have the time correct. And then if I double click on this little box, it does everything below it. It replaces the formulas and the rest of them. I knew there was an easier way, but I couldn't remember what it was. So now we've got the time down there, and so I started the machine at 7:19 p.m. and then all the rest of the data is 1 minute apart, so it's taking a reading every minute. And I don't really need some of these other ones, but I do want to change this one. I'm changing the width of that column so I can change it from T1 to time. Okay, and then this one, the P1, instead of the B006-4, I'm going to call that cycle. And that's which part of the cycle it's in: the drain, the freeze, the main dry, then the final dry. So that's and then the heater and heater state. Oops, this isn't time, that's temperature, jeez. Okay, temp. Okay, so now we have the pressure, the temperature, heater state, the temperature, some that aren't used on my machine, and you could either get rid of them or ignore them. And then what part of the cycle it's in. And then those are basically the only data that we use. Now, if we make a line graph from that, the problem is this 5,000. The 5,000 is going to make the scale go up to 5,000 or higher, and we really don't need that. And so it condenses the graph to a very small part at the bottom, with a couple of tall legs at the ends for the 5,000. So what I'm going to do is change the 5,000 to just 1,000, and then I'll change anything that's higher than 1,000 to 1,000. If you're trying to troubleshoot the pressure, you wouldn't want to do this piece, because then it would hide it. But you could just scroll down and see it. So I want to... Anybody remember where the replace is? There it is, find and replace. So I'm going to use find and replace, and I'm going to look for anything that says 5,000, and I'm going to change it to 1,000. And replace all. So now everything that said 1,000 or 5,000 is now 1,000. Now I'm going to close that, and there will be a few more that'll manually change. Okay, right here, when it first starts to drop, there's going to be a few more. So I'm going to take those and change those also to 1,000. So like I said, it would hide a trouble. It would hide a vacuum problem if you had that. So you wouldn't do that if that's what you're looking for. but by doing this, it keeps the scale lower. And then it's easier to watch the rise and fall of the temperature. Okay, and it only changes about 6 minutes worth. Now, there'll be a few more of them. So when I open the drain valve, they'll have the same thing at the other end. And when I restart, where is that? Oh, this is a different batch. Shucks, I didn't choose the correct batch. Oh well, we'll see this one. Oh, this one, final. Okay, drying, final, freezing. This will still work. Okay, now I also want to change the data, I also want to change the freeze to a number so that it will show on the graph. So I'm going to change drain. Let's see, most of it happens at 1,000. We'll try some different things. I'm going to change this for now to 200. Well, maybe we should start with 100 for that one. We'll start with 100. Okay. Now, freeze. We want to again find and replace. I'm going to do change. Oops, that's not going to find that. Okay, going to find freeze and change it to 200. And I don't know if these values are good, if I should have gone 400, but let's see. The pressures are mostly going to be above. They're going to be 500 or 600. This should work. There'll be some overlap. So replace all. Okay, and then let's see what the other. So drying. So then we want to find drying. So drying, and I'm going to replace that with 300. And then final dry. So final dry, and we'll replace that with 400. Okay, and replace all. So now, let's see if we've got everything. Yes, because I don't have the very end. I don't know why. So anyway, this isn't the file I was thinking it was, but it'll work for what I'm after. So okay, close. So now, okay, so now we have numbers in all of those. Now I'm going to click on C, and then with the control button, going to click on F. So now I have pressure. Oh, I want those. So selecting C, D, E, and F, and then P for the cycle times. Okay, do I have them all that I want? So this tells me the pressure. This tells me whether the heater's on or off. This one tells me the temperature. And this one tells me the cycle. Okay, those are the ones I want. So I've got those selected. Now I'm going to click Insert, Chart. And I'm going to choose a line chart with just lines only. Okay, and then finish. Now, oh, I must have messed up somewhere because it stops here. Pressure and the heater and temperature. Yeah, so you can see then the graph goes from 1200. So if it had left it at 5000, this would be all condensed down. But why are we not seeing the rest of it? And then these are the lines which corresponds roughly to, well, not roughly, they are 1 minute apart. So basically this is at minute 6, 36, and so on. So somewhere around 1266, so somewhere between around here I have an issue. But yet this keeps going. So let me figure out what... Okay, let's try that again. So we want these, and so pressure, heater, temperature, and what cycle it's in. Okay, what am I missing here? Insert, chart, line graph, just lines. Okay, that looks better. Yeah, so there must have been some hidden data down there that it was seeing that I couldn't. So I have no idea, because that shouldn't have been there. Okay, so now we can see, again, it's showing just 1000 because we chopped everything down to 1000. So this is actually kind of a lie. You know, it would have been way up here and then dropped down as the pressure dropped down. It would have had this curve. So here's the freezing, and this rise is probably when I put the food in, and so it would have come up a little bit and then continued back down. And then right here is the beginning of the dry of the vacuuming. So that's where it switched to the main dry cycle was right here. Okay, so once the pressure got down below the to 500, it turns the heaters on, drives the pressure back up, heater turns off, pressure drops back down, and continuing. And you can see then it starts to take a longer time for the pressure to go back up. And the same with the heater cycles, or the temperatures. So the green being the temperature, or yeah, the temperature. So the heaters turn on, it cools a little bit, but it's still, the pressure's still rising because the residual heat on the trays. Anyway, that's how I interpret it. And again, you can see how the cycles get longer and longer until finally it can't drive the pressure back up over the 600, and it just stays on and finishes driving off the moisture and then starts to drop. Okay, so that's the best I've got. So you should be able to take your data, put it through something like this. There's lots of programs, of course, and come up with an interesting graph to show what's happening. And thanks for the person that asked about that, because I haven't seen this in years, because I kind of forgot about it. I did it a couple of times on the very first, probably the first few months that we had it, and then probably haven't done it again since then. So this is pretty cool. Okay. Alright, so if you want to stay with me, I'm going to do another one, hopefully with a little bit more interesting information. This looks like it's from November or something, so I don't even know what food it is. But I'm going to go ahead and open that. Again, I'm using OpenOffice Calc and separated by commas and tell it to open. And then the same issue with this line, which honestly doesn't matter because I'm not going to use it. But if you want to know the time, then it would need to be there. Okay, and arrow over. Okay, get out of that, enter, and then double click on the drop down button, and then that takes care of it. And then going to take column F, widen it up a little bit, change the T1 to temp. Okay, the P1 to cycle. I'd really be interested to know what the newer ones have, because they have all these rows of data available that aren't being used on the older machine, but it has the capability, so it'd be very interesting to know what's in them. Okay, so then going to do the same thing with the other portions of it, which was going to change the find and replace some of the data. So, well, I'm on Final Dry, I might as well change that. And we'll go, what do we use? So, 400. I think it was 400. Okay, oops, I wanted to replace all. All right. And drying, I'm going to replace that with 300. And replace all. And freeze. Freeze with 200. Okay, and drain. I'll just manually, I'll close this for a second. Just manually change that to 100. There could be one at the other end too. I don't remember. So let's scroll down real quick. So we also want finished. Yeah, so this one goes through the whole thing. I don't know why the other one only had part of the data. And then replace all. And then also okay, is that all the ones? Okay, I'm just checking to see if there were any other words. I think that's it. Okay, then find and replace the 5,000. Going to replace the 5,000 with 1,000. And maybe I should replace it with something slightly more. That way, when it does start, it's more visible. So I could use 1,100, for instance. And then I could look for the ones that are between that and the 1,000. Okay. and then scroll. We're looking for anything that's between there. Okay, like this 1500. We'll change that to something less than 1100. I think I'll go with 1000 so that it's an even number, so then it really shows up as something that's been changed, because the odds of actually having exactly 1000 on any of them is much shorter, much smaller. Oops. So 1000. And changing those to 1000. Okay. Okay, and it'll have a couple more spots that it could have them because the pressure was up and down a few times. Okay, we're good there. There we go. Could probably copy and paste, but again, I'm not real sure how to do some of these things without messing things up. Okay. And this would have been, the 1100 means it was at 5000. So this must have been when it was setting overnight at some point, because there's a lot of hours there. Here's a couple more. So this must have been where I checked it. So took it out, checked it, put it back in. Okay, this looks like the main cycle area. All right, so let's make a graph out of this one, because this one's going to be a lot longer. So again, we want column C for the pressure, then I'm holding down the control key and choosing D and E and F. So now I've got the heater state, and I'm not even sure that these are, well, I definitely want the heater, but I don't know if I need both of them. Could kind of experiment with that. And then the cycle. Then insert chart. Okay, and I do like a line graph one. We could use whatever works, of course, but I don't want the points only. I want the lines only. Oh, that's cool. That was much better. Oops, I missed something. So I need to go change that piece of data. So it's pushing the chart way down. So somewhere around 300-ish. Okay, so I missed a piece of data where it had a high number. There it is. Okay, Yeah, because then it just scrunches all the data at the bottom, and it's really hard to be able to see all the little ups and downs of it. So now, okay, select the columns again, C, D, E, F, and P for the cycle one. And then insert chart. And a line graph, and lines only. Okay, see now everything's much bigger because the maximum is only 1200. Okay, so now we can expand this out and look at that. There's probably some easier way to do that too, like maximize or something. Okay, so now again we have the pressure, and then the heater status, and the temperature in yellow, or the heat status, the temperature in green. So dropping down, opened it up to put the food in, dropping down again. So that's a ridiculous amount. So that means it was freezing for almost 3 hours before I got around to putting food in. Okay, and I put the food in, then it drops back down, and then, so this is the freeze cycle, and then the main dry cycle, and then the final. And then going to the end, so I must have stopped it, weighed it, put it back in, wasn't enough, did it again, and then an overnight thing, because then it stopped, and this is at the end cycle, so finished, and the pressure goes back up, temperature just keeps going down until it reaches the bottom, and then restarted it to warm it up, and then again checking it for weight, and it still must not have been dry enough because there's a couple more, and then finally taking it out. So at least this one's more interesting. Gonna go ahead and call that good. So if there's any questions, I probably can't help much because this isn't something I know a lot about. I've only done it a few times, but it does look cool on the screen, and it really is interesting to see what it looks like. Okay, so thanks for watching.